Welcome to Blood in the Snow Radio, where we give you the latest news and interviews with the best in Canadian genre cinema. Here are your hosts, Robert Bellamy and Festival Director Kelly Michael Stewart.
And we are continuing on the road of Bits Radio 2024. Blood in the Snow Film Festival is where we are live, and we have the privilege of sitting here with this gentleman with an amazing short film. I'll get you to introduce yourself, your project, and can you give us a synopsis of what it's about?
Sure. My name is Colin G Cooper. I'm the director of a short called Bath Bomb, which is, it's a queer take on Giallo, which you may or may not be familiar with, but it's a guy prepares what appears to be a romantic bath for his partner, but after accusing him of cheating, it becomes not so romantic anymore.
Little escalation. Where did that idea stem from? So,
there was like a 1-minute version of this that I discovered, I guess you could say. I met a queer screenwriter from New York, based in Mexico City, who sent me a bunch of screenplays that none of them really hit my curiosity, but then he offhand said, I also have this folder of like one-page screenplays that I did for these one-page screenplay competitions, and I was actively looking for something that could be pushed in the Giallo direction, and he sent me what was, a one-page, very simplified version of what Bath Bomb became, but it still had the essence of a bath that starts romantic and turns non-romantic. And then together we expanded it into the 10-minute version that it is now. And there was influence from both of our romantic histories, essentially. And we had shared romantic experiences. I mean, cheating is not a unique experience. So it was something we were able to both speak to. Yeah.
This came from a one-page script idea?
Yeah, a very simplified version of it.
I was going to say, yeah, that must have been super stripped down.
Yeah.
Excellent. So how did you go about doing, like, with the shoot itself? How long was that? Because when you have to get a bath bomb made.
So I was very, very fortunate. This turned into something very different than the original plan. This is my first short, but I have a background in music videos, and I was originally going to make this with crew that I had worked with on music videos, but I had one executive producer who put in about half the budget. We crowdfunded a portion of it. We got a portion of it from Movie Maker magazine, and then he filled in the rest. During the time that we were making this, he formed a company that started financing feature films. The first film that they financed was a modest film called Long Legs. And so his position changed dramatically while we were pre-productioning this. And he kind of encouraged me to, he had no film background, neither did the other partners in his company. And they're like, we have a vested interest in networking. So if there's anyone that's kind of like a high goal for you that we could get contact info for, let's reach out to them. And, because if it's worth us establishing a relationship with them, we'd be willing to put more money in to do that. So the first person that I wanted to reach out to is kind of like the most prominent openly gay cinematographer that I'm aware of, happens to live in Toronto, is Jeremy Benning. He shot all 6 seasons of The Expanse. He did Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. He's done episodes of The Boys. He did Cross, which is out now on Amazon, #1 show on Amazon right now. I didn't know him, found his contact info, cold pitched him with a script and a pitch deck, and he came on board. But then once he was on board, he attracted all this other talent. So those props you're talking about were made by Walter Clausen Group, who have done prosthetics for Guillermo del Toro since Pacific Rim. And he also brought on his whole lighting and grip team. Other than dialogue, all other sounds are Foley. And the Foley team was this team here called Footsteps, who have been doing it since like early Cronenberg and up to now. They did the Dune movies. They did Blade Runner 2049. They did Challengers. They're actually working on Challengers when they did our film. And this was all just through Jeremy connections that they don't even do shorts. Like we would have never had those opportunities if it wasn't for
everything was Foley,
other than the dialogue. Yeah.
Dang.
Well, some of the underwater stuff is completely created.
Well, yeah.
Because once you're underwater, there wasn't. Although I guess maybe you could Foley that in some way, but they didn't. They created all the underwater stuff.
But it's funny. I think you just gave a behind-the-scenes example of what's so interesting and great about making films in Canada, because we're Hollywood North, and just like, oh, I work with Del Toro. I mean, probably half the people at this festival has probably worked on one of the shows at one point, and it's for, just doing effects or different kind of crew things like that too, for like that. And it's funny that we're working on Marvel shows and like the Boys and stuff like that. And do you find that as a filmmaker here, like that's been such a advantage, having the kind of like I guess what I call it, really sophisticated people that you can call on, kind of thing, that to do that? Because even though you're saying this is your first short, but you've done lots of music videos.
Correct.
Yeah. That's. It sounds like you had a very, very high end team for someone for a first short. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do think that I've lived in. I grew up in the States. I've lived and worked in LA and in New York, and I do think not only is there a huge amount of top tier talent here, especially in the genre space, actually, but also it's not the same. Cold emailing somebody here, I find, my experience is when I was working in LA, if I had cold emailed a DP of that stature in LA, there's no chance I would have gotten a response. In fact, there are times that I have done similar things with DPs and production designers in LA and never received a response.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's a little bit less of a barrier to entry here, because it's a little bit more of an open community than it is in other major centers for film. Yeah.
There's a lot more. It's a little bit more. The networking is a lot more organic, and you can kind of meet from different projects or at fests like this and stuff like that, and kind of
for sure
come together that you wouldn't be able to there.
I mean, to be fair, we also landed at a time like the Walter Clausen connection worked out because it was in the middle of the strikes as well. So there was also, people had time to be charitable because they didn't have a lot on their slates.
But this just goes to show the beauty of networking.
Yeah, well, the big takeaway for me, Movie Maker actually did an article on the production that was in the physical magazine about the takeaway essentially being that as an emerging filmmaker, you often get advice, and often you hear this advice even at film festivals when there's a Q&A with the director about, like, just go out and make your film with whoever you have, and you can shoot on your phone if you want. And I don't think that's bad advice, but I think inherent in that advice is a discouragement from aiming higher than that. And I think if people did aim higher, they would learn that you're not going to get as many no's as you thought you would, especially if you're really passionate about the project. And that was definitely our experience. And to be clear, we weren't going to these people with, even though the financiers were willing to put more money, we're not paying any of these people like what they normally get paid. So we weren't going to them with a big envelope of money and saying, do you want to work on this? It was still charity.
Passion project.
But a lot fewer no's than would be expected. And there's a snowballing effect. Like, once you have one high stature person involved, and you advertise that when you're pitching it to other high stature people, they're more likely to come.
Well, and that's also too, especially when people, I find, especially for short films like that, and anything that's in the genre space, people just want to work on that kind of stuff. They're working on, so many people, especially in Ontario, are working on what I call Hallmark style movies. This is their bread and butter for movies, and they're like, I just want to do something that's kind of speaks to me and stuff like that. So they get to do something, especially in the genre space, it kind of that can really get people to not worry about the paycheck for it so much. It's like, okay, I have my day job, but I want to go and have some fun on this set and do this for a few days.
When we met the Foley team at our casting crew screening, I'd never met them in person yet, and I was just, they're out in Uxbridge, and I was thanking them, and they're saying that, man, usually we only work on features, so like before the one day we spent on this, one day where we get to do all the sound instead of just focusing on one thing. Like, I had done a week of just Zendaya sneaker squeaks for the Challengers. It's like, this is amazing to work on.
Don't you think your bar is set a little high now, though, with this being your first short? How do you propose to, increase things in the second?
So this was a proof of concept for a feature, and the story is not related at all in the feature, just the proof of style, essentially, and the tone and the comedy versus the horror and how far we're going to go with the violence, etc. And the feature that it was a proof of concept for has been picked up for funded development by the same company, Rabbit's Black, that did Long Legs. They did Rumors as well. And right now we have the same team attached in the pitch. Like Jeremy's coming, the cinematographer will be coming back, and other key people will be coming. The props people will be coming back, etc.
Amazing.
That is very cool. Okay. I was worried you were going to set things so high with this one. Like
No.
next time your DP's Bob from the corner store. And
Yeah,
you're like,
I was
not
worried
looking
about
the
that
same.
too, but that's not what ended up happening. Who knows? I could still, mess it up though and ruin that relationship, but that's for another day. Yeah.
Goals. That's what that is. Goals. Well, so we know you have the feature coming up. Do you have anything else coming up?
We're still doing some more festivals with this. The feature is kind of like a first step in kind of like a queer giallo universe that I want to do that involves a couple of other features and a streaming series. Hopefully, if this goes well with this with Rabbit's Black, with this company, and I can establish a strong relationship with them, that they'll be interested in coming on board those projects as well. And if, like I said, if I drop the ball and make something they don't like and makes them no money, then
It's been a good run.
yeah, I can. I'm sure there's plenty of cafes hiring.
How do people find you to see what you're up to?
I only have one social media account. It's Instagram. It's just my name, Colin G Cooper, just all one word, and that's pretty much the only place I exist online.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and good luck in the festival with this, and I can't wait to see the feature now. You have to keep me in the loop on the feature.
I will, for sure.
Because I love Bath Bomb. Bath Bomb was a blast.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on the show.
You got it.
Here.
Join us next time for Blood in the Snow Radio. Bits Radio is a production of Three Evil Cats Productions in association with the Blood in the Snow Canadian Film Festival. For more information and to listen to other episodes, visit bloodinthesnow.ca and tweet us at BitsFilmFest. Music by Jen Gorman, produced and edited by Kelly Michael Stewart. I am Eduardo Correa